In today's video, we have all kinds of NHL news and rumors around the league. Today, we're looking in the rumor mill at teams like the Boston Bruins, the Columbus Blue Jackets, New York Islanders, Buffalo Sabres, Vancouver Canucks, and a few others. Plus, we have a big update from the NHL waiver wire involving the Boston Bruins and some big injury updates as well, involving Macklin Celebrini and Austin Matthews and others. All that coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to discuss here today. First, let's kick things off with news from the NHL waiver wire. Today, we found out that the Boston Bruins have placed forward Max Jones on waivers. I suspect this might be partially to make room for Tyler Johnson on the NHL roster. Of course, they signed him to a one-year deal yesterday for the remainder of the year. It's no secret that they haven't been completely happy with how things have worked out with Jones so far this year. He signed a 2-year deal at $1 million per season after not being qualified by the Anaheim Ducks. He was obviously near the end of his RFA window with them. They chose not to qualify him and let him walk. Jones hasn't had a phenomenal career by any means. He's typically been somebody who's, he's built like a power forward, but obviously plays more of a bottom six role because he doesn't quite have the offensive skills of the, players you normally see in the top couple lines. So Jones might be an intriguing pickup for some teams, but the fact that he has a second year in his contract at $1 million and hasn't, really had a great start to the year is probably going to result in him clearing, I would suspect, but you never know. It is a contract that's not a ton of money, so if teams out there do value him more than the Bruins, then maybe we'll see a move. Hard to say. Lots of updates around the league when it comes to some injuries. A big return tonight will be first overall pick from the 24 NHL draft, Macklin Celebrini. Of course, Celebrini played in the very first game of the season, had a great showing, had a nice goal and assist. Things were starting off great, but unfortunately in that game he also got hurt and has missed all the NHL games for the Sharks since. So clearly that's not something we were expecting to see. I know they originally said it could be like week to week, and he's been out for, well, I guess it's not quite a month, but close to it. So, at the end of the day, it's good to have him back. Obviously, it'll be interesting to see how he responds in the second NHL game tonight against the Columbus Blue Jackets. And obviously get him back in the rookie race, and just back, obviously creates a bit of a buzz, right, when he's on the ice and when he's going to be able to play. Fans want to see him, so it's good for the game, good for the Sharks. They're also getting back Todd Dellandrea. He's also been activated and will return to the lineup tonight as well. In Ottawa, there was some hope that Artem Zub might return tonight as a battle on the road against the Buffalo Sabres, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. I guess they're saying no Zub for you right now. Zub is probably, based on what we had seen yesterday in practice and today's skate, I think he's really close. He's returning from a concussion. I think they're just kind of erring on the side of caution and deciding to give him another day or two and make sure there's no setbacks and everything is good. He has had a couple concussions in his career, good distance apart, not like they were super close together, but still, with everything we know about concussions, you want to be careful. And I know yesterday he was saying that we would see for today. He was feeling well, but I don't think we have reason to think there's a setback. Just giving him a little extra time is what we believe. Shane Pinto also continues to rehab and get better and closer to returning, but still needs a little bit more time as well. So we will see the same Senators lineup tonight that we've seen the past couple of games when they beat the Kraken on the weekend. In Toronto, Austin Matthews is out of the lineup tonight. He's listed as day-to-day. There is some that believe that this absence might extend. It might not be a one game in return. It could go into later into the week as well until the next game or two. So hard to say. We don't have a lot of details on what the Matthews injury is. Just that he's out tonight, day-to-day, and it may be another game or two before he comes back. Clearly, the Leafs are doing okay in the standings, but their power play, which finally did get a power play goal in the last game, unfortunately, they did drop that game in overtime against Minnesota. Certainly, he's a big part of that, and they need to get that power play going to really boost their overall confidence and help the team win more games, because the power play, the fact that they're doing okay in the standings with the power play being so low is crazy. So that's good news. When they start lighting it up, they'll just be that much more lethal. The Kraken today have announced that they've recalled prospect forward Ryan Winterton as well, so he'll hopefully have a chance to get into some NHL games. The Islanders, we know, are dealing with a lot of injuries in the blue line. We've talked in recent days about some players they may be looking at for potential NHL trades, and which we're going to actually mention another one here today as well, but They recalled 20-year-old prospect defenseman Isaiah George. A little bit of a surprise. Obviously hasn't played a lot in the AHL. Only got a handful of games in. But that's where things are at with their blue line right now. George is going to be given an opportunity. He will be making his NHL debut this evening. The Edmonton Oilers have returned Drake Caggiula back to the American Hockey League. The Buffalo Sabres have also done the same with Yuri Kulich. He's been sent to the AHL, and the Flyers are expected. I don't think it's been made official just yet, but there was word from Flyers reporters today that Ryan Poehling is expected to be placed on injury reserve and could be out for a little bit of time. When you go on IR, you have to miss at least 7 days. But they can date that back to when the injury occurred. So we'll see where things go with him. Now, lots of rumors around the NHL. Let's start with one today that came from NHL insider Kevin Weeks, talking about the Boston Bruins and pending unrestricted free agent forward Trent Frederic. Now, this is not a rumor suggesting that the Bruins are definitely looking to part ways or that he's not going to be back next year or anything of that nature. But when you get players that are pending unrestricted free agents, they tend to become players that a lot of other teams will pay attention to, especially if they're players that are, highly sought after and could be, of interest to a lot of other teams. And Frederic certainly fits that bill. I mean, if you factor in his size, his speed, his toughness, his ability and willingness to chop the gloves when necessary, good character guy, many teams are looking for that in their bottom six. He doesn't come with a very expensive contract. Lots of intangibles there to like as well, on top of what you see on the ice, and just a sought-after player. He's kind of become one of those players for the Boston Bruins. I know at one point early in his career, he had a hard time getting in the lineup, but once he did and he finally stuck, he kind of become, one of those glue guys, so to speak. So not that the Bruins are definitely looking to part ways, but Weeks is saying that there's a lot of NHL teams that are very interested in him and are monitoring that situation. Of course, we know the Bruins had a slow start to the year, so that you combine that with his contract status, and it just means that teams are watching closely, going, I wonder what's going to happen there. If the Bruins aren't in the playoffs, if they actually fall out of the playoffs this year, would they move this guy? That's kind of where things are at. Lots of interest. They could get a good return. Clearly, the Bruins aren't quite the same team. They have been better the past couple of games, though. They get back-to-back shutouts. So I know their confidence and level of optimism, I'm sure, is peaked up. But it's a lot of hockey left to play. It's a long season, and we will see where things go. At this point, it's definitely fair to say I think that the Bruins aren't quite as strong and mighty as they've been in recent years, but they've got lots of time to prove us wrong once again, because I know even last year there was lots of predictions that this is the year that Boston falls off, misses the playoff. Didn't happen. You can't go against them. I've learned a long time ago that you don't count the Bruins out, because that is an organization that has high standards. They don't like to lose. They don't like to rebuild. So they're going to be, even if they're ever kind of, always kind of retooling, so to speak, they will do what they got to do to be competitive. So at the end of the day, it's a situation where lots of teams are kind of inquiring and kind of kicking tires, watching the situation. Frederic is going to be one of those names as we get closer to the trade deadline, because I don't think the Bruins are in a situation to make a quick decision unless they get an offer that they absolutely just love and can't refuse. Maybe something happens, but more than likely, a lot of these teams, that's why a lot of the rumors happen early in the year, and a lot of the actual trades, except for the smaller ones here and there, kind of tend to happen later, closer to the deadline, because teams don't want to make moves until they have a better idea of what they are as a team. And they also need to decide if he's a player that they want to re-sign. Now, I know Bruins reporter Jimmy Murphy, he had chimed in on the report from Kevin Weeks, saying that he believes that Kevin Weeks' report is true, that there's lots of teams out there that are watching the situation and are interested in the player, but he does believe that there is also some interest still from Boston to re-sign him and bring him back. So, again, just because he doesn't have a contract for next year, and just because teams are watching it and hoping he comes available, doesn't mean he's going to. Maybe Boston decides that he's too valuable and they want to keep him, and that could happen as well. But if we get closer to the deadline and the Bruins are not kind of looking to be contenders like they once were, and he's not signed, then he's definitely going to be a player that's going to likely be in play and will get lots of interest, driving up his price for Boston's return. Another player worth monitoring, as well as top young defenseman for the Blue Jackets, former 6th overall pick David Jiricek. Jiricek's a player that a lot of people are looking at right now going, what's going on with him? He's, a right-shot defenseman, drafted very highly just a couple years back, number 6 overall. And at the time, a lot of people said, geez, that's a steal, the fact that he's still available at that point. Highly, highly regarded. Now, there's been some concerns over his skating to some degree. He's put up really good numbers in the American Hockey League. Offensively, the defensive stats, looking at plus minus, which I know isn't a great stat, but the defensive metrics, there's still definitely work to be done on his defensive game. But you know what? The fact that he's so capable and strong offensively, a lot of the top elite level offensive D in the NHL, they're not exactly known for being, so strong defensively. I mean, look at Erik Karlsson, for example. Like he was good at, or is, I speak about him like he's not there anymore, but obviously his game's not where it once was. But he was good at defending, I found, especially when he was in Ottawa in his younger days, because of body positioning and his skating and whatnot. But at the end of the day, was he known for his defense? No, he was known for how creative he was with the puck and how he could move the puck, the passing, the scoring, that stuff, right? So, maybe Jiricek's just going to be one of those types of defensemen. I don't know. But at the end of the day, last year, there was some drama around Jiricek, around spending time in the American Hockey League. And at this point, the fact he's still at the NHL club, he's not playing regularly in the lineup. And when he is, he's not getting a lot of minutes. I think 12, 13 minutes is the most he's getting. I think he's played in, I believe, 3 games this year. So there's just a lot of question marks. I came across a Hockey News article today, kind of just looking at his future. And they're kind of wondering, the author of that article was just kind of pondering the ideas, are the Jackets at risk to lose him? Because clearly he, like a lot of the other guys we've heard about recently, like Liljegren, for example, he wants to play, wants an opportunity. In some teams, usually with their high draft picks, will be more than accommodating and more than willing to give them that opportunity, and he doesn't seem to be getting it. So it's just a little bit confusing in a sense, but, he's got great numbers in the minors offensively. So what's it going to take, especially on a weaker Columbus team, to get him more playing time? And, I guess the concern here is if not being in the lineup regularly drags on too long, at what point is he going to ask for a trade? Because last year there was concern it was going to lead to that. It didn't. But, it's the whole handling of the situation over multiple years. You have to think at some point it could get to that, and some people are quite concerned. So time will tell, but a situation to watch. The Islanders, we've been talking about the Islanders looking for help on defense. That continues. As we mentioned, they called up Isaiah George today. More rumors today about how they might replace guys like Pelech and Riley, and a name that's come up that could become available in Vancouver is Erik Brannstrom. Of course, former Ottawa Senator. Brannstrom could be on the move again, signed with the Avalanche after not being qualified by Ottawa, then was traded to Vancouver. And, at this point, I think the Canucks have their eyes on another defenseman, which we're going to talk about here shortly, and it could create, a spin-off effect here where Brannstrom maybe doesn't stay there super long. The Islanders, of course, would have seen him a lot playing in the Eastern Conference the last few years. He's obviously somebody who can play that left side. He's a smaller guy, but a good puck mover, good skater. A bit of an offensive flair at times, but not as much as we would have thought when he was first drafted. But there's definitely parts of his game that's to like. But to me, the only reason Ottawa really moved off him is they really needed a different type of defenseman that had some more size and grit, and they needed to change up the dynamic back there on their blue line. A team like the Islanders, maybe they feel like they have enough other aspects there that they could do with this type of defenseman. But that is speculated to one of the names that they're looking at. Could come cheap, short contract, short money, and maybe maybe it could work out. Erik Gustafsson in Detroit reportedly is another name on the Islanders' radar. But again, Detroit hoping to do better things throughout the year. I don't think they're quite ready to sell. Whereas Brannstrom right now in Vancouver seems to be almost they picked him up, but I don't know that like betting with the Leafs. I don't know that their intention was to keep him long term. So we'll see. Now, speaking of Vancouver and Brannstrom and availability, a lot of talk that they got their eyes on Byram. Now, the Buffalo Sabres reportedly are getting a lot of trade interest in this young defenseman. Of course, we know they got Owen Power. We know they got Samuelsson. They got Rasmus Dahlin. When they picked up Byram last year, you kind of thought they completed their top 4. Too many left shots in there, though. There's a lot of reports that they'd like to have a right shot top 4 defenseman that change that mix a little bit. And Byram, his name is out there. Doesn't mean for sure that the Sabres are going to move him. We've heard lots of speculation about Dylan Cousins, Jack Quinn. I don't think Buffalo's happy with where things are at. They're not making the step forward in the progress like they were hoping to do. Their GM, Kevin Adams, has been really, outside of the Byram from Middlestat trade, relatively quiet. We haven't seen a ton of activity out of the Sabres the past couple of years. So, at the end of the day, they're now looking for a 2C, which they moved out in Middlestat. Didn't want to pay him what he was looking for. Moved him, got Byram. So at least, as much as they might be instantly looking to replace Middlestat after moving him, they might have some buyer's remorse there, but regret for moving him. But Byram's not like he's been a bad fit for them or like a bad asset or anything of that nature. There's nothing along those lines. But, it's a different story here, right? So, again, we know that what they're looking for is a 2C and a right shot top 4D. Now, it doesn't mean Byram's going to be able to generate that return. Now, Vancouver's got their eye on Byram. According to Darren Dreger, he's the exact kind of defenseman the Canucks would like to add in their top 4. So, maybe there's something there. But if you look at what the Sabres are reportedly looking for to add to their lineup, I don't know that the Canucks are going to want to give that up. Clearly, if they got Miller and Pettersson down the middle, that's not going to change, and they're not going to be involved in any kind of trade for Bo Byram. So that's on it. The Canucks would like to add a third-line center as well. If they can find a third-line center, which obviously they had the luxury of having Elias Lindholm for a chunk of last year. Not a luxury they have anymore. So they're looking to replace that. And like I said, add another defenseman, which is, like a Byram. So then you look at Buffalo, and Buffalo's looking, they like a 2C and a top 4 right D. I don't know if Vancouver's going to give them that. So, it's tough to say that these teams have an exact match unless there's some assets that are taken from one, flip to another. Could be a 3-team deal. It's hard to say. All we know is Darren Dreger was saying that the Sabres were getting a lot of interest from Bo and Byram, from a lot of the teams that were mostly inquiring on Byram were from the West. That's all they would say. And it's believed that the Canucks are one of them. But we can't say that absolutely 100% for sure. So again, that's not a given. But, looking at what Vancouver's believed to be looking for, it makes a lot of sense. It's just, do they have the right package that they can offer to Sabres to make them interested? Now, certainly, Vancouver's got some interesting players that maybe interest Buffalo, but Buffalo's got a lot of young talent. They need to figure out, how to maybe mix in some other pieces here to take this team forward, because it's just not happening so far. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But Bo Byram is definitely in the mix. It could be on the move if the Sabres get the right deal. Western teams are inquiring, and at this point we'll have to wait and see just where that interest goes. But let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.